After a brief hiatus, Star Trek Discovery is back with Season 1, Episode 10, Despite Yourself. I think that this may be one of my favorite episodes of the series so far, although I do have to admit that Discovery does set a fairly low bar in that regard. I think that this episode had some stronger character moments than we've seen in the past. There was some good writing, and a lot of the story was really interesting and really engaging, although I did think there were some pacing issues towards the last half of the episode, and it definitely felt like the plot was going a little too back and forth and was kind of all over the place, and I just feel like they were trying to put a lot in one episode so that sometimes it didn't really feel like there was quite enough time to explore everything that we needed to. So in this video I'm basically just going to recap and review. I'm going to give you the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and what I hope to see next week and throughout the rest of this season from Star Trek Discovery. If you have not seen this episode, this is your spoiler warning. We are going to be talking in depth about Season 1, Episode 10, Despite Yourself, so if you have not seen it, please go do so, although if you don't mind spoilers, then I guess just keep watching, because I can't tell you what to do. This episode basically picks up where the previous episode left off, with the Discovery drifting in a mysterious part of space after a failed jump with the spore drive towards a starbase. Stamets is incapacitated and the Discovery is not in Kansas anymore. We quickly realize something is very wrong when they encounter a Vulcan vessel that begins firing on them, and a Federation ship immediately intervenes. They find that they are in the midst of a lot of wreckage and debris, so they send Ash Tyler out in a worker bee to go and retrieve the computer cores of one of the ships so that they can find out more about where they are. We see Ash Tyler has a panic attack in the process of removing the data core and has to be talked through it by Burnham. And when he gets back to the ship, we see him immediately go and have an encounter with L'Rell. He opens her cell and gets real up close and personal, and she recites a Klingon prayer to him, and he recites one back, essentially revealing that he is the Vokist Vok in the history of Vox, which we all knew since the beginning of the series, and this is the most non-reveal in the history of non-reveals, but I guess I am glad that they got it out of the way early. Although I personally thought they spent way too much time with him and L'Rell this episode, and I don't find L'Rell particularly engaging or interesting as a character or as a Klingon, and so I just wish they had spent more time on other aspects of this episode. Then he and Burnham are having a conversation, and she talks about what the Federation would normally do as protocol with PTSD, which is put him in full quarantine, which sounds like a weirdly cruel thing to do to someone who's experiencing PTSD symptoms. We also get a scene between the incapacitated Stamets and Dr. Culber, who is attempting to care for him, and it's very tender, and we also see Tilly trying to jog his memory by being her little annoying self, and then Lorca comes in and is generally, you know, a raging dickbag, because that's what Lorca does. And so he basically turfs Stamets off to a different doctor and removes Dr. Culber from the case because fuck you, that's why you can't be objective even though I've been letting you treat him for ages. We find out pretty quickly that this is the mirror universe from the Star Trek The Original Series episode Mirror Mirror. The reveal comes when we find out that the Federation is not the Federation, but the Terran Empire, which is the same name that was used in that original series episode, and it's basically an evil, fascist, authoritarian version of the Federation that is human exclusive and hell-bent on taking over the galaxy. And the Klingons have united with Vulcan rebels and Andorians to fight against the humans. And that's kind of a fun premise. I almost wish we got to do more with that, but I'm kind of scared they're going to spend a lot of time here and that they're going to make it so that it's not a fun premise anymore. Because, again, with the Discovery has this habit of having a high-quality episode and then immediately having a very low-quality episode, so I'm not super sure what to expect of next week. We find out that the captain of the Discovery is not Lorca in this universe, but in fact Tilly, who's known by a bunch of fearsome nicknames, including the Witch and Captain Killy, which Saru remarks is not particularly clever, and he's not wrong. And watching the ship and crew makeover was kind of a bit of a cheesy moment in my opinion, but it was also a little bit fun. I do think that the uniforms are a little bit ridiculous that they've come up with for the Terran Empire, but I guess it's a look. And we get to see Tilly attempt to be evil Tilly, and that's kind of fun, although there's some scene where she's talking to one of the crewmen of the other ship, and it's just over the loudspeaker, and she just stumbles over her words and says heck and hell and a bunch of other stuff, and it just seems like that would immediately blow their cover. Although there is this great moment with Lorca posing as a chief engineer, again over audio only because he's a fugitive in this universe, and he does a Scottish accent, which was obviously an homage to Scotty, which was kind of a cute little moment that I sort of liked. Then they hatch a plan for Burnham to go over to the Shenzhou, where it turns out that she was the captain in this universe, because Michael Burnham is presumed dead and Lorca is a fugitive. She takes Lorca captive in order to weasel her way onto the vessel. And we do get to see Lorca get stuffed in an agony booth, which is kind of great and fitting with all the bullshit that we've had to watch him do this series. I'm not gonna lie, I did find the ending of this episode a little bit satisfying. I did. Although I guess we should finish talking about the Laurel Voke plotline. Ash Tyler goes in to get an examination from Stamets, and Stamets tells him that his organs are weird and something's wrong with his limbs, and he basically tells Ash that he's not him. And for his trouble, he's murdered, just super casually, Ash just like fucking breaks his fucking neck, and just, it's whatever. This, of course, was immediately preceded by Stamets warning him that the enemy was near, and the enemy, of course, was Voq. And I read in some interviews with Anthony Rapp that they are going to be bringing back Dr. Culber's character. And I find myself so incredibly annoyed by that. Because, first of all, the show really wants to be Game of Thrones in the way that it flippantly kills off characters, and I find that particularly annoying because there was no actual reason to do that for the story. It was clearly just for shock value. And now they're going to come up with some convoluted bullshit where either they kidnap and take Mirror Universe Culber, who I'd assume would be a dick, or they somehow revive or resurrect Dr. Culber's broken neck, which also seems incredibly ridiculous and improbable. So either they're going to bury their gays, which I am not ever a fan of at this point anymore, or they're going to just do this bullshit where they somehow magically bring him back to life or replace him or something, because I guess this is supernatural now and that's just what we do. I didn't like that plot point. I really didn't think it was necessary to kill him, and honestly it bothered me a lot. I didn't like it. What I did like, however, was the amazing elevator scene we get with Burnham aboard the Shenzhou. So after she's crammed Lorca into his agony booth to just wait out the episode in horrible pain, she asks to be escorted to the bridge by a crewman that she watched die on the Shenzhou the first time. And when they're in the turbo lift, he attempts to kill her because the way people move up in rank is by murdering their superior officers, which honestly just seems like a terrible way to run an organization, but I digress. Burnham basically just kicks his ass in this badass fight where she even knocks out the gravity thing on the turbo lift, and she just stabs him and just takes him out. And we see this moment where she's got him leaned up against the door and she's looking at him and she's kind of crying and freaking out a little bit, and or she's not crying, but she's sort of whimpering, and it's this moment where you really see how much it impacted her that she watched this person die once and had to kill him with her own hands a second time. And seeing that moment manifested in that character really reminded me what a great actress Sonequa Martin Green is when she's given something to fucking work with. And I think that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the episode in terms of the way that she played that, and I thought it was just fantastically well done. I think it added a lot to the episode, and I think it was a really good character moment for her and a good moment of character development as well, and I think it added another sympathetic layer to the character. So the crew applauds Michael Burnham's murder as the guy falls out of the turbo lift onto the floor, and we cut to Lorca roasting away in the agony chamber. Oh yeah, I guess there's some like romantic exchange between Burnham and Tyler, and that's a whole thing, which now just feels disingenuous since we know that he's Vogue, and that's obviously not going to play out as a successful romance. And I don't know, I'm interested to see where this episode goes, or this series goes, and I'm looking forward to next week's episode because it's either going to be an absolute train wreck or it might be an improvement on what we got this week, which was pretty good. I think I would rate this episode like a B or a B+. It wasn't amazing, it didn't blow me away, but there were some moments that I did really like. There were moments that really made me like these characters and start to feel a little more invested in this story. And I just hope that we get to see something better from Star Trek Discovery in the next couple of episodes. I didn't get a chance to talk about absolutely everything I wanted to in this video, but that's okay. Let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments section down below. If you like my videos, subscribe. If you don't, I'm sure you will tell me. But that is everything that I have on this for you. Until next time, Wiedersehen.